Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Ahmed Dasuki. I'm part of the product management at Cisco at Data Center Networking. And I have my colleague, Ravi Balakrishnan, here to help me answer some questions. He's also a great colleague, very expert, years and years of experience. I call him the machine. He has all the answers, and he'll be there to answer Q&A. With that, let's go ahead and get started. What we're here to talk about today is how to redefine your cloud strategy with Cisco's intent-based networking and HashiCorp. Intent-based networking has been a movement, just to kind of give, for those of you who don't know, like it kind of encompasses a lot of Cisco technologies, specifically in data center networking and other enterprise networking solution, of how to realize, transform what you want to explain or actually configure into from policy into your intent. You can look at it as two sides of the same coin. So with that, let's drive into the agenda. First, we're going to start about the business requirements, and of course, why this is, why we're doing this, and how to, and the recent, I would say, changes in terms of the cloud and other factors. We're going to take that and transition into Cisco Data Center Networking and HashiCorp Terraform. We're going to walk through Terraform Cloud, CI/CD, and GitOps workflows. Then we're going to transition into ACI and HashiCorp Consul. And then we would like to wrap up with a unified Cisco infrastructure as code roadmap. And lastly, with key takeaways and resources. So let's get started. Business requirements are driving change. What we mean by that is that when we think about consumption, flexibility, simplicity, technology has enhanced how we shop, bank, and go on vacation, all from our phones or laptops. When we talk about IT ops, we have complexity that always comes up. We want to make it simplicity. Data center must deliver with no room for error or downtime to support these innovations. Now comes the cloud advantage with agility, but it's not just about cost and agility anymore. Business innovation is the competitive advantage. When we talk about multi-cloud and the hurdles that sometimes affect speed, we have security, compliance, migration, cost control, performance, lock-in, skill gaps. All of these sound familiar? When you talk about this, it's like how to deliver the apps, whether they're on-prem or cloud. We want resiliency. We have a new generation of cloud container, virtual workloads move around fast and go where the resources reside. And lastly, we want to do this all with security and scale in mind, not just in mind as a requirement, a must-have. Secure traffic flow at any level, hardware or software, and achieve zero trust security model. Cisco provides scalable on-prem fabric infra choices and solutions on the cloud, and of course, in adjacent to all the some of the HashiCorp technologies that we're here to talk about today. So with that, before we dig deeper, let's just go over some basics. So how does Cisco DCN solutions help? When we talk about ACI, we talk about ACI Anywhere. This has been a vision that we've done since, ACI first launched in the late 2013, or I would say early 2014. Now we're here, very happy to say, almost 6-7 years later. And we started with a single site, a single on-prem solution to expand into multi-site, which means that you're no longer dependent on geographical location, and that was introducing the multi-site orchestrator. And then when we talked about that, then we started integrating with clouds. So what we want is the same look and feel as on-premises. Your policy looks the same. Automated policy translation, consistency across the entire data center, and common governance, end-to-end discovery, visibility, and troubleshooting. All of that we're trying to achieve with ACI. We have achieved with ACI Anywhere, with more to come. So when we look at here, we just want to highlight very clearly that we have both on-premises and cloud-only solutions. We're no longer tied to just being on-prem. So in case that you would like to try it, you have it, you can go to AWS and you can launch Cloud ACI and try it there. Also, we have, of course, the data center, on-premises cloud, IoT Edge, Cloud Exchange, containers, Kubernetes, hypervisors, etc. So all of this, and we have Azure also as well. I think GCP is roadmap this year, but let me know if you have any questions on that. When we talk about, so now that we talked about ACI and ACI Anywhere over the evolution over the past years, we want to highlight a new platform which is called the Nexus Dashboard, which is another evolution. When we look about this, when we see this picture, we look and we see that Nexus Dashboard is the center of the DCN operations moving forward, addressing use cases for any app, all site types, and mixed form factors, whether hardware, virtual, cloud as a service. Some of them are available already today, with some in the roadmap. But the point is that we want to move away from distributed broken experience. Nexus Dashboard 2.0 launched in September, with 2.1 coming up soon, that will have enhanced capabilities. Now, the point, if you look at this, and there are a lot of pictures, there are a lot of kind of words there, and the reason why I wanted to go through this is that we want to build on this foundation to when you see these logos again in the presentation, to see how Terraform and how Consul has expanded its integrations across. We have expanded our integration with Terraform and vice versa across multiple of our technologies. So Nexus Dashboard, when you think about it, is really a platform for day 2 ops. It can host at the multi-site orchestrator, which is what controls the ACI multi-site, or configures, or policy-driven. We can also host the network assurance engine, or Nexus Insights, which are 2 main components for, I would say, 2 main components for assurance and insights. We also have we have evolution on that in Nexus Insights 6.0. If you're interested, we have all of these webinars available publicly. But the point from that is, even from MSO, what the connection type is, as you can see in the bigger circle, that we have the capability to connect with AWS, Azure, on-prem, Colo Edge, and most importantly, that we have here is the DCNM. For those of you who don't know what DCNM is, DCNM stands for the Data Center Network Manager. And it's basically, you can think about it as the manager for Nexus OS fabrics. And that's where we have lots of customers, of course, from the years past. Of course, we have lots of customers on ACI as well. But we want to highlight that we're bringing in the same, kind of the same one place for a single pane of glass. And I know this word can be cliche in a lot of things, but it's really unifying the dashboard, unifying the platforms, unifying the experience on a single platform, so you don't have to go into multiple places. We're providing correlation between some of these apps through Nexus Insights. And ultimately, all of this is the question of why. Well, we want to help you get things done faster. We want you to help understand where things are broken or where things are going well. So higher ROI and lower TCO. Now, with that, let's see how we transform the operations and experience. When we bring that together, and you look at how these kind of translated, we talk about the Nexus Dashboard at the top, which is new. A single dashboard to view health, single UI to consume app services. Then you have Nexus Insights. And when you have Nexus Insights, that translates into Nexus Insights and Network Assurance Engine. When you have orchestration, automation, and policy, that's when you talk about APIC, multi-site orchestrator, or DCNM. And then when we talk about the infrastructure and telemetry, we have, of course, a Nexus Fabric with more other solutions like NCS and third-party that are on the roadmap. So proactive. So when you talk about the second thing is Nexus Insights, and so proactive notifications, configuration compliance, real-time telemetry, faster resolution. And lastly, when we talk about the network infrastructure, we have centralized model for multiple fabrics, line rate performance and scale, hardware-based telemetry. All of this translates into the big picture of intent-based networking, the 3 key pillars: policy, automation, and analytics. And hopefully most of you are very familiar with kind of the different personas that we have: the DevOps, SecOps, app developers, NetOps, and CloudOps. How does this, what are associated, how do these people, how do these colleagues, these admin here, her, they do their jobs, they're operators, they do their jobs. And what we like to say here is that we have an insertion, we have a way to work on each of these use cases. When we talk about DevOps, we have Terraform, MSO, and APIC. When we talk about SecOps, we have modify the segmentation policy in the network fabric, continuously validate compliance before changes. We have MSO, network assurance, APIC, and DCNM. App developers, we have Consul and Network Insights. NetOps, we have MSO, DCNM, and NXOS. And lastly, CloudOps, Terraform, MSO, APIC, CAPIC, where clearly Terraform is one of, if not the leading automation solution in that space. So when we talk about Cisco Delivers, so Cisco delivers cloud-native automation, leveraging APIs across DCN solutions, ACI or NXOS integration with premier infrastructure as code tools and partners, such as HashiCorp Terraform and HashiCorp Consul. We also have DevNet. And when we talk about DevNet, we have DevNet for Terraform for sandboxes, learning labs, code samples for developers to try before deploy experience on their automation journey. DevNet is, I think, if you just search for Cisco DevNet, you'll find it. You find plenty of solutions on ACI and other solution products. It's really, and we've invested a lot in the past few years to make all of that available to our customers, partners, and anyone who wants to try it before deploy. All right, and then lastly, the GitOps. We're going to talk about how the GitOps best practices to illustrate how Terraform Cloud, Kubernetes, ACI all come together, leveraging Git as a single source of truth. So now that we went over the bigger overview about everything from high level Cisco and now starting to introduce Terraform and specific details, let's see how we talk about Cisco data center networking and Terraform. Today, for most of you, of course, who is familiar with the Terraform providers, these are the solutions that we have. We have ACI, whether it's cloud or on-prem, so APIC, ACI, CAPIC, or MSO providers. And we also have DCNM that has been available earlier, that is now available. And then we have Nexus Dashboard and Network Insights towards the second half of this year. The reason why I wanted to go over, when we bring the whole kind of the journey as I'm walking through the slides or the presentation, is that we started with all of these different components, but now we're bringing it from a Cisco DCN solution, and then we're bringing it into here of like how that translates with Terraform providers. So when you see these logos and you see these icons, you're not, hopefully that will be easier. So ACI, MSO, DCNM available today, that's what's on the truck, and then we have Nexus Dashboard and Nexus Insights towards the end of this year. Why all of this? Our combined solution provides customers a path to faster adoption of multi-cloud automation across their entire infrastructure and support for other ecosystem tools in their environment. Let's expand a little bit now in terms of when we saw about these providers, how that would work with Terraform Cloud. And I know it's similar to what I've meant that I went through in terms of Cisco DCN technologies. Of course, I thank my colleagues at Terraform to providing me with a few slides. So here we talk about Terraform Cloud. What it is a fully managed infrastructure as code cloud service. It's a cloud compliance and management tool. It has a self-service infrastructure, enterprise features, and lastly, most importantly, tying to the last slide, is Terraform providers can be used with Terraform Cloud. If you've seen, if you take a closer look at the picture on the right, you'll see that Terraform Cloud, from that perspective, is at the center, and it can talk to whether it talks Kubernetes, AWS, Google, and then also that we have Azure. We also have Cisco and also other and VMware, for example. And we'll talk about how these two work together in terms of the entire workflow. So Terraform Cloud workflow with public clouds. This should be familiar to a lot of you when we talk about the person, the developer or the NetOps, how they translate what they would like as infrastructure as code using Terraform through GitHub, and then translate that with Terraform Cloud, and then push that into AWS or Azure or VMware. Let's see how that translates, that same exact flow, how that translates with Cisco when you talk about MSO, ACI, when you talk about Cloud APIC or on-prem APIC. The workflow is split into two parts. The first part is to concentrate on how does the dev NetOps admin manage the networking section. And the second part is how we expose some of the constructs to the application or the developer side so they can use it to deploy their own services. Why we're doing this? The scenario is that we have a new product that needs to be launched, and for that, we want to deploy a new network segment. So as the Net DevOps admin, I have decided to automate everything using Terraform. First thing I want to do is that I want to declare my end state by using HashiCorp configuration language, which is known as HCL. It allows me to define these pieces of software. Once that's done, I'll push that to GitHub, to our source code repository, which maintains the history of the changes that will help me in the future. That will also provide me with capabilities for approval for pull requests in the future. Because we have integrated Terraform Cloud with GitHub, once GitHub has the configuration, automatically GitHub will notify Terraform Cloud that there is a change for this specific workspace, and then push those changes and starts executing a Terraform plan, which is the first step to evaluate and compare the state file. In other words, do I have anything to do, or do I do nothing? And that's how we maintain the state in the declarative way. When that plan is done, it's going to ask if you want to apply or you want it to automatically push, which is going to eventually make the changes to the infrastructure to comply to your request. So in summary, write end state using HCL, push to GitHub, run Terraform plan, and apply. In our case, we are using MSO. So Terraform is going to push to MSO. MSO in its turn is going to push to each of its components, such as the APIC in our case. It's a multi-step process, whether we're going to push or not yet. Terraform Cloud doesn't stop there. It will save those changes, as we were mentioning, into a state file. And because we use the cloud, the state file is hosted into Terraform Cloud, which allows us to be able to share between developers or NetOps, but also allows us to share a portion of it to other people in our organization, so that their pipeline can use some of these contracts. So we want to minimize the dependencies and be able to provide these contracts to different teams. For example, for here, I'm going to provide the subnet to the developer group, so they can use that and deploy the VM automatically, and then we can pass that information from one to another. If we know, once that's done, we can follow a similar workflow from the side of the application. Same workflow, and how that team will follow the same steps. Once both are done, your application will be deployed, your connectivity will be ensured, and everything is good to go. Now let's see how similarly we can construct this using a CI/CD pipeline or workflow. In our case here, the data center admin has selected Terraform, which is great. And so we're automating ACI, and we're also automating the configuring and orchestrating the virtual compute environment. The code is stored into a version control repository that allows the creation of different branches, track changes. As I mentioned before, in the future, you can track changes, oversee the pull request, rollback. You have role-based access control and peer review. In summary, we're talking about Terraform to GitLab repo in this case. The GitLab repo is configured to trigger a workflow on an orchestrator. In this case, the orchestrator is called Jenkins. It's a very popular tool in open source. Jenkins pulls the workflow code and the Terraform infrastructure as code from GitLab and executes the steps that you see here. Jenkins simply executes the Terraform code, which first prepare ACI, then VMware infrastructure. For example, VMware, it happens when we talk about the configuration of ACI, we talk about creating a tenant with EPGs and contracts. Now, when it goes into VMware, it creates two VMs, for example, a client and a server, and then eventually, through Jenkins and through the automation that we have in place, the VMs will be placed into those EPGs using ACI's integration with VMware. Finally, Jenkins starts the web server, then logs into the client to validate that it's able to retrieve content from the web server. Each of the steps, and the reason why we have the WebEx logo here, triggers a chat box in WebEx, so you can stay informed of each step of each progress of the workflow. Now, with that, let's talk about a third workflow in our last in terms of the workflows for today, which is GitOps. Similarly, we can talk about that GitOps, well, actually, similar in terms of the workflow, but here GitOps is a new DevOps practice that aims at leveraging Git as a single source of truth when interacting with Kubernetes at every stage of the CI/CD cycle. In other words, Kubernetes users don't interact with the cluster using kubectl, but using Git, webhooks, and Kubernetes operators. As we know, Kubernetes has become one of the platform of choice for developers because it provides a tool to efficiently manage modern application lifecycle. Hopefully, you're still with me so far. To illustrate GitOps, let's consider the following workflow. There are a few evolutions from the CI/CD workflow. First, the language here on the step one, the language to describe this infrastructure is not specific to Terraform, but it's using Kubernetes. We're using that to express the infrastructure needs. This is possible by using custom resource definitions which allow extension of Kubernetes objects to almost anything. The second part is that Kubernetes will be scheduling the execution engine, making sure all the required infrastructure is deployed based on the previous configuration defined. Example, it uses Terraform to talk to our ACI fabric. One particularity of this workflow is that Kubernetes can maintain a feedback loop with the operators and, depending on the operators, auto-remediate changes. So before I jump into the next topic, we just wanted to take a moment and then look, kind of summarize what we've talked about so far, which is ACI Anywhere, a high-level overview about how that the evolution happened with ACI, and then the introduction of Nexus Dashboard, Nexus Insights, the DCN solutions. And then we talked about Terraform Cloud with ACI, and we talked about CI/CD, and then we talked about GitOps. So these are all the things that we've done so far. Now we're going to switch gear a little bit into Cisco ACI and HashiCorp Consul. So for those of you who don't know, at least from maybe from Cisco customers or Cisco side, or new to both, which can great to be here, thank you. What is HashiCorp Consul? HashiCorp Consul provides a foundation of cloud networking automation using a shared registry for service-based networking. What we talk about is, for example, we need to provide real-time directory of all services with their health status. We want to provide a secure service-to-service traffic with identity-based security policies and encrypted traffic with mutual TLS. That's what provides a zero-trust network with service mesh. And lastly, which is actually we're going to dive into, is the network infrastructure automation. And that is, I would say, in my opinion, is a killer use case because it provides service discovery for dynamic reconfiguration as services scale up, down, or move. And in our case here, we're going to talk about Consul, Terraform, and ACI and how they all sync together. Before we go there, let's talk about what's available today, just in terms of the Consul perspective. When we talk about so Consul ACI App, let's pause for a second and be like, wait, what is an app? How does that translate in terms of networking? So one of the benefits that we have from ACI, I think it was launched about 4 years ago, and you really think about just simply, you pick up your phone and you have a smartphone, regardless of whether iPhone, Google, whatever, Android, whatever the case might be, you have an app store or an app center. ACI has that exact same capability. We have an app center, which started with ACI and now it expanded into DCNM apps and then with more in the near future. So that's the exact same idea here that we have. And that allowed us to expand the ecosystem of ACI in utilizing an easy-to-consume model, just like an app. Literally, you can install, you can remove it however you like. Of course, we don't want to remove it, and that's why we're here today. But when we talk, so let's bring it back in terms of the use cases and what the ACI app is with Consul. What we're trying to do is that we're trying to provide a secure and easier to operate microservices. We want to pave the way for dynamic service-driven network infrastructure automation with almost self-service capabilities. We're providing end-to-end visibility and insights into the entire technology stack, starting from the application services, where Consul would play a role, and then to the physical network, where ACI would play a role. It will enable a secure, consistent, multi-cloud infrastructure across any workload by shining light into the nuances of application communications. So the app, the Consul ACI app, allows network administrator a direct view of Consul services and how they map to the IP addresses and network segmentation, which we have implemented into the network before using this app and using ACI. We get the same experience as yet another single pane of glass from the perspective of Consul. This provides all of this. Why we're doing all of this? We're providing a deep visibility to the network admin on what services are using the network and how a network change could impact them. Now, bringing all of this that we talked about right now is just like the Consul ACI app, and then we talked about what Terraform can do in terms of automating, provisioning, and doing the ACI infrastructure. How do we bring the best of both worlds together? So there's something that's called ACI. Some of you are familiar with it. It's ACI and Consul-Terraform-Sync. The use case from that is we want the network infrastructure automation that we talked about a little bit earlier. We want to eliminate manual ticketing processes. We want to reduce risk. When we talk about Consul-Terraform-Sync is designed to automate many different tasks across different network devices that are traditionally handled manually. For example, updating load balancers, applying firewall rules, etc. We also want to reduce the risk by minimizing the impact of misconfiguration across multiple networking devices. All of that brings into this use case is the network infrastructure automation utilizing ACI, Consul, and Terraform-Sync. This is how HashiCorp Consul addresses the complexity of cloud-based networking and enables dynamic updating of network infrastructure devices triggered by service changes. One way that Consul provides network infrastructure automation is through Consul-Terraform-Sync. It's a tool that utilizes Consul as a data source for networking information and health status for these services. For example, APIs, front-end application, and databases. CTS uses Terraform as the underlying automation tool and leverages the MSO ACI Terraform Provider to drive relevant changes to the network infrastructure. So this is another view of like how this whole thing, you can think about it as a closed loop or a kind of self-feeding loop when you have changes on Consul, or even when you talk about vice versa, and some of these things that can trigger also the Terraform to be able to make the changes into ACI and MSO as of today. And then vice versa is going to be, we're exploring that currently, but this, at least we started with this as of now. So when we really want to bring the benefits to this is that we provide a declarative service and workflow-driven network automation. We want to automate manual tasks. We have a lightweight installation and an extremely robust ecosystem. So when we talk about how do we bring these in terms of when we talk about layer 2 to layer 7, like the entire across the stack, how do we bring these benefits? When we talk about zero trust, we want to only open channels when needed. We want it to be verbose. We want to know at some point, sometimes we have to dig really deep into hop-by-hop insights and correlation when you figure out what something is not working right in the data center or the cloud, whatever your workflow is. Proactive, we want to have a proactive way to detect anomalies. We want to be adaptive. How security and policies are in the right place. And lastly, it's service-based, not IP-based for workloads. We really want to help you with looking at kind of the service-based instead of having to worry about IP addresses and the traditional way of doing things. When we bring all this together, we want to provide you with Consul ACI, with Cisco ACI and Consul. That's how we can bring the benefits across from layer 2 all the way up the stack to layer 7. So with that, we're almost we're almost towards the end of our presentation, and I just wanted to share with you, bring in a different perspective that we have. We are working with our colleagues from Compute, and we have we have a unified roadmap, I would say, that, I mean, in the sense of we're working, collaborating to provide a unified roadmap to our customers. When we talk about Terraform today, as we mentioned, we went through the icons with solutions. We have APIC controller, we have Cloud APIC, we have multi-site, and we have data center DCNM, which is the one that controls NXOS or configures NXOS and manages NXOS. And then the new icon here is Cisco Intersite. And then in the second half of this year, we're going to deliver on Nexus Dashboard and Network Insights. In terms of HashiCorp, it was a recent solution that we just launched in terms of the app for APIC controller. And we're looking into MSO, Nexus Dashboard and Network Insights for the second half of the year. The one thing that kind of maybe I should have put it together, but in the previous slide, when we bring the ACI Consul-Terraform-Sync, it's a combination between ACI, Terraform, and Consul that is available today. So what's in it for the customer, and to take advantage of the three takeaways? The customers can rest assured that Cisco stands behind the joint solutions with HashiCorp Terraform and Consul, with full support and validated designs. Second, customers can rely on deploying Cisco's cloud-native network automation solutions across the entire portfolio of Nexus products and have the flexibility of choice and how to automate their network. Last but not least, and this is using infrastructure as code as a kind of the base, and that can have its own 45-minute presentation about what infrastructure as code is. And there's the one thing I would say about that, there's not a single definition that everyone can agree upon as of today, as of this time, but hopefully something will converge in the next couple of years. But HashiCorp is Terraform HashiCorp Solutions is a key component of infrastructure as code, and our Cisco DCN and Compute Cisco in general has provided solutions, as we mentioned about the validated that it's real, it's here today, and then we have a one touch point for customer support. When you talk about automation with Cisco using Terraform and Cisco solutions. Last but not least, DevNet gives a zero cost to try before you deploy automation journey experience. You can take advantage of all the DevOps centric resources we have hosted on DevNet. It's basically developer.cisco.com/Nexus API. We have a link at the end. Try before you deploy. It's always on sandboxes to help you play around. We have free labs, training, and webinars, and be part of half a million strong community. When we want to help you through the organization of your infrastructure as journey using Terraform, you can start with an ACI learning lab, start automating with Cisco ACI and Terraform. Then you go into step application and network policy with Terraform. And then you can go into ACI plus MSO. And then you can go into how to use the ACI Terraform provider hosted through DevNet, GitHub organization. And then lastly, we have MSO and strictly MSO and Terraform Learning Lab in the future. So with that, I would like to close with kind of some links to important resources. We have the Cisco DevNet that we talked about before. We also have HashiCorp Terraform. We have Getting Started. Sorry, they should have left Consul by itself. But we have Consul, we have Terraform, Cisco ACI, and we have several things in terms of GitHub repo, Terraform MSO provider, and lastly, we have some good videos from my colleagues on enabling hybrid network as a code with Cisco ACI and Terraform. I believe these slides will be made available shortly after this presentation, so you'll have the links embedded in that. Thank you for your time, and hopefully I'm glad that we finished on time despite the earlier technical difficulties. I really appreciate you being here today, and I look forward to seeing you in future sessions. With that, thank you.
Ahmed, there is one question
that
appeared that I can't answer it electronically in this platform, so I was told I should read it out to you at the end. So this is an easy one. First of all, a great presentation. The question is, you used a couple of acronyms in one slide at the beginning. What is ACI and DCN? They want to know.
Yeah, so good question, and that's why I wanted to kind of go from the beginning. I think I spoke to it verbally, but DCN, basically ACI is application-centric infrastructure, and that is, when you think about it, as the software-defined networking solution that was, it's a leading market software-defined solution that was also presented back in August 2013, went to market August 2013 approximately, or early of 2014. And that constructs of two things, where you have the controller as the what's called the APIC, Application Policy Infrastructure Controller, and you have the Nexus 9K, the infrastructure that run ACI software. They are not running NXOS, which is the Nexus, the traditional Nexus operating system. So that's when you define, you can really think about it as the ACI of just two things. You have the controller, and then you have your Nexus switches that are running ACI software. When we talk about DCN, that's kind of like actually that's the name of the business unit of which I'm a part, and it stands for Data Center Networking. So I'm part of the Data Center Networking business unit. So these are, and again, I know that there are a lot of acronyms being thrown, and hopefully that helped. Hopefully that helped clarify.
Yeah,
is there a data center network? I saw another question that I'm up to answer. Is there a data center network managing specific Terraform provider that has been released? Yes, that is. Yes, it's available right now. If we go back to, once you see the slides as well, in the data center providers, we have ACI, we have MSO and DCNM available today, and then we'll have Nexus Dashboard and Network Insights as part of the roadmap later this year.
Yeah, thanks, Ahmed.
Anything else, Ravi?
No, these are the only two questions. In fact, the second one just arrived as you were reading it. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that you answered a lot of other questions. Thank you for taking care of that while I'm presenting. Sure. All right, with that, thank you, Ravi. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you have any questions, I can wait for another minute. If not, wish you all the best, and hopefully that was a good presentation for you to know what we have today from Cisco DCN, Data Center Networking, and alongside with HashiCorp Terraform and Consul. Thank you.
Thank you.